Hello everyone, Yaron from Motion Swift here, and we're going to take a quick look at what makes the Porphyra Hybrid synthesizer a perfect instrument to match to your Kontrol Mk3 keyboards, and what we mean by saying that this thing has deep and probably unprecedented NKS2 and implementation, and like really an unprecedented sort of immersive and expressive flow with the Mark III keyboards. So what you see here is already very beautiful. We'll get into it in just 1 second. I want to quickly jump to a previous instrument that has an NKS1 implementation to show the differences, to highlight them, basically. So this is Farlight. This has an NKS1 implementation, so this looks on the Mark III the same way that it would look on the Mark II keyboards, and there's no extra groups here that you will see in a second when we look at Porphyra. It's just the parameters and like a sort of page after page after page. And you quickly also notice that they are all just knobs. And the only thing that the Mark III does automatically is it recognizes when things are switches. So there's no extra work needed by the library developer to recognize a switch. So this happens automatically on Farlight. But everything else is just like NKS1, including things like if I go somewhere in the sampler and I try to look for pitch, you see that this should actually be a bipolar control. You see I go to minus here, and then it passes the 0, I go to plus, and it's actually a unipolar control. And things like menus, nothing is really represented. Bottom line, everything is either knobs or switches. So let's jump quickly back to Porphyra Hybrid. And the first thing that you will notice is already that things are represented quite differently here. For example, if we go to the LFO that is selected here, we already see that if I now switch waves, so first of all, I can scroll and I can see the names of the different waves. And once I select something, so a sine, I will see a representation of a sine wave. Triangle, I will see a representation of a triangle, and so on. Obviously, the switches, same as this is the same as on Farlight. They are represented by switches. Things like tempo sync have their own little icons, so you know also just like visually looking at it that this little knob over here will sync the tempo. And we can see that, yeah, once this is on, the rate is actually moving by tempo divisions, and if this is off, it is moving by hertz. So better visual representation, not just on on-off switches. You can also kind of further define that as we have here with the tempo. So you can actually see a tempo representation. Moving on to what we saw in Farlight, where a bipolar knob was actually represented unipolarly. On Porphyra Hybrid, bipolar knobs are represented in a bipolar way. So like the step knob, it goes from minus 100 to 100, and when I'm on 0, it is centered, and the coloring is actually correct depending on if I'm going clockwise or counterclockwise. The last thing you see on this page is somewhat similar to the LFO menu, but here we have the destinations menu, and here we actually don't want a graphical representation, right? We don't want to show some like oscillator shape. We actually want to show the destination name. So this LFO, it's really clear to see. Everything is really clear, right? We know that it's a triangle wave, retrigger is on, sync is on, it's a little bit this way on the depth, there's representation, we know it's going the positive way, and we know that the destination is to the pitch of oscillator B. If we want to change destinations, they're all available in a menu style, and we can simply select and they will be represented correctly over here. So this is as far as the way the parameter, like the context is displayed in NKS2, but that is not everything. Remember on Farlight, everything was just pages that just simply go here and you have to really look, and that's the only way to kind of look for what you need. With NKS2, we have here this edit. So first of all, I can go to the performance mode. Let's stay in the edit mode for a second. And over here on the top, we have different groupings. So you have only not just one single place where everything is one. You have a second sort of, let's say, encapsulation of different things. And they can then be kind of sorted into spots that make more sense. Let's say it that way. So for example, I can go to the wavetable, and then I will have a bunch of parameters pertaining to the wavetable, and inside if I scroll inside now, it's still in the wavetable. So I'm still scrolling the relevant parameters in the pages for the wavetable, and I can also see over here on the right how many relevant pages are in this wavetable group. So just by going, let's say, to sampler, I know that there are 2 pages of sample parameters. So I know that I go one time, now I'm on page 2. Everything is sort of clear, right? So it's super nice actually, and I can then continue on, and if I want to quickly jump to the filter, I know that all I need to do is click here to the filter, and then these can also be scrolled. So let's quickly scroll and see one more thing and reach one of our effects sections. Porphyra has creative, modulation, delay, and reverb effects. And if you go here, we see that on the delay effects, we actually have cycle delay loaded. And once it's loaded, we see here in the section name that these are really the parameters for cycle delay. But Porphyra comes with different kinds of delays. I can, here with this menu, I can turn off the delay altogether, and then it correctly removes all these parameters. In NKS1, this kind of dynamic thing was not possible. A library builder would have to just give all the parameters for all these different delay effects, or do something like weird or hacky in some way. You could not just kind of display the correct thing. So let's now choose replica, and we quickly see that all the replica parameters are here. And to recap from before, I know that there are 2 pages of parameters. I can scroll here. I can see that there is a tempo sync button really quickly. I have all this information. It's really available to me. And we even have the menu here again with the types. And if I select a type, it will be correctly displayed. That's the second thing. And the third thing I wanted to show, basically the pages and the ability to do dynamic modulation. Or, yeah, it is modulation in a way, dynamic sort of setting of the parameter pages. And that brings me to my main point. Every single parameter that you see on the interface of Porphyra Hybrid is also available on the synth. The synth being the Mark III key.